Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started. There will be people filtering in since there's a ton of folks still out there milling about, but they're rounding them up, but I thought we may as well go ahead and try to keep to time as much as possible. Welcome to the session on biomedical modeling. There are two talks in this session. The first one today is going to be given by Wolfgang Bühler, and it's SysMO-DB, which is just enough exchange for systems for biology data and model.
Do you hear me? Yep. Okay, perfect. So I don't repeat the title. In fact, in the program, it's that I'm from EML. But this is the for-profit EML, and I'm from the non-profit EML. There's some difference. And I'm presenting for a whole bunch of people from Manchester EML Research and from Stellenbosch in South Africa. SysMO is about systems biology of microorganisms, as it is now single-celled microorganisms. It's a funding initiative which comprises 11 projects, including 91 partners from 9 countries, which started in 2007. We are SysMO-DB. We started in July 2008, and we were initially funded or intended to be funded for 3 years, which we are prolonging now. We have 3 staff, 3 investigators, and 3 teams over 3 sites, so there's lots of 3 in there. The goal is to sensitively retrofit the data access. The view was there were already some systems there, and we are the umbrella for this in order to unify data access to this. And for doing this, we have to support and manage the diversity of data, models, and competencies, and we are opting for a web-based solution in order to exchange data, to make search possible, and in order to make dissemination of results possible. So, as I said, we are a whole bunch of free people. And our goal is to put some layer in between our funding initiative and the public. And in order to, we try to put a layer which is inter-project within SysMO, which makes publishing to the outside simpler, which makes using tools from the outside simpler, and which helps people integrate their data across SysMO projects. What did we find when we started? We found that there were own solutions. We found and still find that there's a certain climate of suspicion because when there are so many partners, it's not family anymore, but it's beyond family. There are some people within this funding initiative which are strongly in competition and which are asking themselves, if I put my data up there, will my personal main competitor be able to see it a little bit too soon or not, and things like that. There are data issues. There are sometimes a bit too little data to work on, and much of the data cannot be compared, and we are working on making things like that comparable. And there's most of all resource issues, because this is a biology project. We cannot go there and say, okay, give me 20 people, and we will do a nice system for you. So what we are doing is we try to go for a series of small victories. We try to be realistic. We try not to reinvent the wheel, but to reuse things as much as possible. We try to migrate to standards, make people migrate to standards, and to do something sustainable and extensible. And in order to have a system which is going to be used, we want to have something which provides the user some instant gratification. This is hard to do, but this is our goal. We address doubt and anxiety by, for example, having elaborate sharing mechanisms within our system so that people can really decide this one can see the data, this one cannot. So, and we are building it. So again, the big picture is we have several types of people. We have the experimentalists, whom we want to enable to exchange data. We have the modelers, who normally they have two types of exchange between modelers. Is usually easy. To have exchange between similar people is easier than having this exchange between experimentalists and modelers. So if you look at the natural collaboration within SysMO in a very short, simplified, black and white way, and I don't, as we say in German, I don't want to be nailed to that. Cum grano salis, as the Romans say. We have collaboration during project design because the funding bodies say we want collaboration between the modelers and the experimentalists. So there's lots of collaboration during the design of the project. And what happens afterwards is that either this nice collaboration goes on or it doesn't. There are varying methods of collaboration during projects. Our requirements people, they report from their journeys into projects that they have found a couple of binomes or pairs of people working together, where there is one modeler, one experimentalist, and they have very close communication to each other. Then we also have groups collaborating with groups, and this seems to work either well in a formalized manner or sometimes less well. So what we would like to give as our project and what we would like to give to people is to create some meeting point where people automatically meet in order to share resources and by this further encourage better communication. So here we have a couple of, I'm very proud of this photo because it's 3 types of animals sharing resources. And we would like to have this with our 3 types of people. I said we have not so many resources. I like to do simple calculations in order to outline this. We have 1 software engineer, 1 bioinformatician, and 1 biodatabase specialist. The latter 2, they do a lot of modeling and requirements analysis, trying to find out what's biologically necessary and what needs to be programmed in our context. And we have 11 projects, as I said, and 91 partners. So this amounts to 20 programmer days per year and per project, or in other ways, 2.5 programmer days per year and partner. And this is not a whole lot. So we cannot afford doing a just-in-case approach where we say we first collect what would be nice features to have and we program all of them and then we are done. But we really have to make sure that we don't have a system like Word, for example, where most of the features requested are already there. No one finds them, no one uses them. There are many programs out there which are used most of the time using just a very small subset of features. What would be our optimum or what we are targeting is to just do the useful, necessary features and not doing the other ones. This, of course, is a little bit the holy grail of requirements engineering. We try to go in this direction by doing lots of communication and by helping people help themselves. So our approach to this is a social approach. We first did some questionnaire phase, which in fact was before I came on the project. And but here you see me at the first Pulse meeting. We didn't go drinking beer right away. We had some meeting before that. But we have these 21 postdocs and PhD students from the diverse projects. They are from the three types of people, and they are our design and technical collaboration team. With them, we can test ideas. We can have very good, open, face-to-face discussions. We divided them into 2 chapters. From time to time, we have plenary meetings. From time to time, we have chapter meetings. So that we can see them more often and at a lower cost. And we do audits and sharing. So they audit what we do, and they share information about what they would like to have done. So in a way, these parts are communication means with the projects. So we are the SysMO-DB people on the left, and we show them what's there, and they first tell us what they think about it, and if they think it's good enough, they tell their projects and give the feedback back to us. So the outcome of our first Pulse meeting was very, very interesting for us. We would have expected that there is a need for something like yellow pages, that people say, we want to find within the project who else does X, Y, Z, also in the same way as I do, or who uses a given technique which I would like to learn, or things like that. We were a little bit more surprised about the standard operating procedures, that there was a real perceived need of having one good tool for the whole SysMO consortium which administrates standard operating procedures, so that one can really easily look up if 2 experiments are comparable. But yeah, our biggest surprise, at least my biggest surprise, was that everybody went like, data management, we are using Excel. We have heard it already in this meeting. So this changed our focus a lot. And I think this amortized already all the costs we had with the PALS system. So as I knew I would talk after lunch, I will first feed you some images, and then I will go a little bit in direction of architecture and lessons learned. So as we are telling everybody with all right, we have some very nice Web 2.0 type platform where you have, you see here a Yellow Pages view. There are several things you can watch in the Yellow Pages: people, projects, institutions. You can change between them easily with tabs. You have a nice bookmark area where you can drag bookmarks into, and you can easily visually check what's in there. We have nice tag clouds for further search. And yeah, nice system. So this is the view for standard operation procedures. So we can see who has uploaded the standard operation procedures, who was the author of the standard operation procedures. And we also have thought of our modelers. The working title of this slide was Modeler's Delight. We are enabling upload of models into a popular model database, the JWS online database. We have from SysMO-Seq, from our software, a connection in which we can start simulations out of the system. We can add studies and essays. We can annotate them. So you see here. And we have, as I said, very elaborate rights. So we can have favorite groups where we can say, this I want to share with the favorite group so-and-so. We can give other projects the right to see data. We can add or remove individual rights for people about what they want to see. Yeah, this is how you make a group. So this is the web app. And because Excel, we want to have some data quality, and there somehow the database-ish side of our personality shines through. So we think we need some tooling for people to have high-quality Excel templates. So there are people in Manchester working on the Excel support in order to build templates in which we can add Excel data and where we can annotate the content of columns via nice pop-up menus. So this was the PR title, so incremental steps from beta to beta. We try to have a nice software which goes from working state to working state and is always useful. But largely it gets a story about how to handle Excel sheets for users' benefits. So the image we have is we have all these projects, many of which go like, my disk is my cursor. I want to be able to retract data when it's in the system. I want to be able to retract it, and I want to be able to shut off access altogether. So I think it's largely a matter of feeling. I don't think it will happen, but it's good to give people the notion that they are taken seriously. And so the architecture is rather that this SIG platform, of which I showed you some screenshots, is at the center. It will draw in just enough metadata information through some fabric, some layer to put on the different systems, just enough information so that it becomes searchable, and so that we can then access these data, and that SIG becomes a broker for this data which still resides on the other project systems. So again, there's a need for trade-off. We have huge number of possible systems we might attach to this. There's a huge number of standards and ontologies, and some of them are quite big. So we can, again, not afford just to take all these standards and implement them. So, but we need some standardization for search and for comparing data. So what we are doing is to move incrementally to a just enough standard implementation. And doing this, we always think about that. We say in German, der Weg ist das Ziel. It's one of the rare events where German is shorter than English. So we say the path is the goal. And the translation, I've looked it up, is the journey is part of the reward, which is a bit longer. So we try to have people use what they use anyway as far as possible. And if there are changes to be made, we try to be as unintrusive as possible. We are aware of legacy data, and all the same, we nudge people a little bit towards best practices and organize our actions in a way that we give instantly useful added value to as many users as possible. So the value we want to add is simple search, simple exchange, and simple tool use, including simple workflow use. So what we have done, we have provided convincing Web 2.0 functionality for use, and as an appetizer, I'm told that the yellow pages, for example, are really used for finding collaboration partners, for asking quick questions and the like. We have an upload service where we can do hand-triggered upload of links to files or files themselves, where we can hand add metadata. We are currently working on a harvesting and a change detection service for automatic download with hand-added metadata. And at the same time, we are also looking at the support for Excel templates, which will promote internal and external standards by use and tooling. I showed the tooling a little bit, which consists of parsers, mappers, and classifiers, as I will show in one of the next slides. And of course, where there are other data types, there are some other data types than Excel, and we will support them too. So for our architecture, what we look at is that we have some stability hierarchy. What people use gets more and more stable when they have to agree on these things. So we have the single group or even the single person within the single groups who use some type of template, who maybe changes them without notice. But when things get standardized across a single SysMO project, then they are more stable. And finally, across the whole SysMO project, we have also to agree on some metadata we want to keep. So what we are doing, we have an architecture where we have mappers, and we have parsers and annotated for project levels, and we will enter this into a more stable germ data model. So the basic architecture is that we have the data coming from out of the projects. We have a harvester which cares about getting the data. This harvester already knows where the data comes from, can restrict the number of templates we have to look at when classifying. Then we have a classifier and dispatcher who recognizes templates based on this metadata information, plus the information which is really present in the Excel file. And then we have extractor and mapper, which are used in order to get the full metadata and the full data out of the Excel. So this we, until quite recently, intended to implement in this fashion, that we now get vertical slices out of this, and we start to implement this. But there's some problem, and this problem is that some projects will not be prolonged. So we need first to get all the data so we can annotate it later. So what we are doing is we are starting with the horizontal harvester slides first, and then adding the parsers, classifiers, and dispatchers. There are some lessons we are learning along the way. There is a need with current standards for doing some subsetting. The standards need to be comprehensive. The goal of these standards usually is the so-called minimum information. There's the MIBI initiative. Some critics say it's not minimum information, it's maximum information. I don't subscribe to that view, because the standard needs to be comprehensive, but what remains is that for a project like ours, we always will need a subset of this standard because we have a restricted set of experiments. So for example, in a single cell, something like tissue doesn't mean anything. A single cell hasn't got any gender, and so on. So what we can do then is to do adapted subset templates so that people don't get overwhelmed. I mean, you can imagine that if you need to annotate, let's say, 20 lines or so, you don't want each time to be presented with a selection list like that. And this is one selection list coming from such a standard ontology. We try as much as possible to do some move from biotaxonomy to ontology. The observation is that we have a fast-growing set of standards, and that these standards are also a moving target. So once you're clear that there's no ontology, let's say for some type of experiments, you look 2 months later on the corresponding sites, you will find out that there is, in the meantime, an ontology like that, but you cannot always follow this. So what we are doing is that we are doing an incremental approach where in the beginning we provide keyword annotation together with auto-completion lists. We provide controlled selection lists which are community curated. We provide, where needed, homebrewed taxonomies, which then can be replaced by using standard ontologies when they are ready, and we have then to provide migration tools. A word on software. For the template tooling, we are using Excel and Java. And SysMO-Seq is itself open source under Apache license. It's built on Ruby on Rails, like my experiment. Ruby on Rails is nice because of convention over configuration. I think there are probably not so many tough programmer software guys here. We use it. Ruby on Rails is also nice because it has many libraries, and we are using some Rails-specific libraries like the authentication, for example. It's simply a library we plug into the system. We are using Solr and Lucene for the search, which introduces a bit unwieldy Java Ruby dependency. We are looking into how making SysMO-Seq an easy install for later stages, because we would like people to get this running quickly. And as a database, we are currently using MySQL, but we also test it with SQLite, so we don't introduce any database dependencies. So Stuart is quite optimistic that he could run it on Postgres without any changes. So as a summary, I talked to you about SysMO-DB as a virtual meeting point for different flavors of systems biologists. Our mantra is just enough, just in time. I presented a flexible germ extraction architecture. Talked a little bit about just enough incrementally changed metadata, and I just said there's a lot to done and still a lot to do, which is nice because we won't be out of job too soon. Social, the challenges ahead are social, I think. The pulse work really greatly and motivatedly. And now the social challenge is to get more data into our system. And technically, there will be a couple of big things which are rolling onto us, like publishing into public repositories. It's simply there are many of them. Search and exploration will be the test for data quality. We already have some search, but we want to use in the direction of hierarchical faceted search or distributed search by Taverna workflows and things like that. And for things like that, we need appropriate data quality. There will be more workflows and more workflow functionality usable via the SysMO-Seq software, and we want to further improve the modeling support. As a bonus track or bonus slide, what if the average data quality is below par? What we are thinking of is, at least experimentally, is to add some nagging functionality which reminds people of adding or improving their metadata. So, but first as it's just enough, just in time, we want to first look if we need it. And we are not far enough to decide that. Thanks a lot to all people involved. The people in fat letters are the ones doing the footwork, let's say. Olga from EML, Katie and Stuart from Manchester. Special kudos to Stuart, who is our magical programming guy who as a lonely rider programs all this. Thanks to the funders, to the BBSRC, to the German Ministry of Research, to the Klaus Tschira Foundation, and finally to Microsoft for sponsoring this workshop, which I found so far really great. So now I'm...
Other questions?
Could you give a list of templates or plugins that you find most useful for your community for Excel, for example?
Not on the spot, but in a couple of days, yeah.
So those are things we would like to see if we can work with you.
Oh, this would be cool.
We have some plugins for Excel for social networking visualizations and for data cleansing, but there are other ones we could do. We have Ontology plugins for Word, but not for Excel.
I've seen Cab Forward in the beginning of this year.
There's also an Ontology for biology plugin for Word.
Yeah.
So there are things we could do, surely.
The Ontology plugin for the Excel is looking over the SysMO surfaces that you're already doing in the Word one. But it's nearly built, it's nearly finished. So it's built by the same people who built Protégé out in Ontology tools. So maybe we can give it to you. Who can sell it to you?
Very interested in the scientific community. I am, but they're not. But no, but we can do open source or whatever.
Exactly.
Cool.
Okay, I actually have a question as well. So it's about mapping. I'm thinking back to my days at the National Library of Medicine, where one of the biggest problems that we had amongst people was that even in closely related disciplines, the terminology between those disciplines was actually very disparate, and in some cases actually conflicting. And so I was wondering if the reason why you have to have subsetting is because you're actually enabling all of those mappings. Is that why that filtering is actually necessary?
The filtering becomes necessary because experimentalists normally have, for example, a few methods they use. They don't want to have 60 methods to choose from. So I think we can... what I fear is that we give them too many selection possibilities, they will be overwhelmed. So what we are trying to do is to, as the projects are even more specialized than the whole funding initiative, we can do project-wise templates which will be small enough. So this is the hope, just that the possibility of making mistakes is just reduced. This is all of it.
Well, where did the mappings come from? Where did the standardized mappings originate from that you're using to drive that?
OBO ontologies and things like that.
So do you, if there is an existing ontology, do you enforce that on the users rather than using the letting them use the taxonomy from the start?
If we can, yes.
Do the users like that as an arrangement?
We try to do it easily handleable. So I think the big reality check will be in a couple of months when we see the resulting data quality. So far, we have the impression that the things we give are well accepted, and now we have to see what comes out of it.
Now, I mean, we built this in 10 months flat, nothing to Alan Floyd, with one developer, which is pretty fast. And so we're only just ended our first year, really. So we're now beginning to see. We'll let you know.
Yeah, no, we have a project starting out in the School of Scientists and we're doing this taxonomy versus ontology.
Right, right.
One of the research questions is, which way you go, or how do you make sure that the users are happy. But we're trying to do a global data center and there are ISO standards and things. So
Mm.
Well, this one has the new standards, the overall standards are there, so the tools are trying to draw from those.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting. We're rolling it out at the moment.
And maybe something added to that, my group is doing a biological database, SABIRK, where we have lots of similar problems like that. And our observation is that if people can add compound names by themselves, you will end up having not a list which is as impressive as the different spellings of Britney Spears at Google, but where we have 3 or 4 spelling mistakes and things like that. So we have the impression that for many things we have to have at least the controlled vocabulary state.